All right, we are recording. Well, welcome everyone to our second in season with educational Zoom meeting. Tonight's topic, as you've seen online, was we're going to talk about mechanics and positioning for both two-person and three-person officiating. So that's our goal tonight. Thank you for the chat message there. Yes, Merry Christmas with a smile. Thank you to the iPhone that sent that in. So we'll go ahead and get started. Jared Butson here. I'm going to do some presenting. Vice President Eric Rain is going to do some presenting. Our goal is 25 to 30 minutes, us talking. Throw your questions in the chat while we're talking. That's probably going to work the best. And then the other one of us, we can answer those as we go. And then for the last 25 to 30 minutes, we just want to open it up and we want to hear your questions, and those can either come through the chat, or they can come with you by using your microphone. So let's go ahead and get started. Eric, can you share your screen? And we're going to do a little screen share and just a little talking before we get into some specifics here. So we'll let his screen share come up. All right, so what we see here is we have diagrams on the left, we have signals on the right. You can find this in a number of different areas within your rule book. For the signals, you can find both of these items within your mechanics book, whether that's online or whether you have a physical book. So if you take a look at the left-hand side with the diagrams, all right, let's just walk through each one. So for the pre-game warm-up with three officials, or the referee standing at the mid-court line, the U1 is going to be observing the home team, the U2, the visiting team. The U1 would then chop the clock to start the game, and the U2 would be opposite the table. And the U1 is always, as you face the table, going to be on the left-hand side when you're chopping. We switch over to two-person. We have the R and the U. Sometimes they stand together, sometimes they stand apart. The same with three-person. But the U is going to observe the home team. The R is going to be the visiting team. And when we throw it up, the R is always going to be facing the table. In two-person, the U is going to go the direction of the tip. And then in three-person, the U1 would go their direction to lead. And then the U2 would follow in as center, and vice versa. So if the ball went to the right as you look at the screen, then the U2 would flow down the court. Let's jump down to the timeouts. We'll just sort of peruse through these pretty quickly. On the timeouts, if you come together as a crew to chat, zero problem with that. You come together. I'm with some crews and we may chat every timeout. Okay, and I'm with other crews and we may only chat at a timeout at the end of the game. So it's sort of a crew dependent. But if you come together and chat, you need to come together where the ball should be put in play. So if the ball's on the sideline and that's where it needs to be put in play, come together at that spot. If the ball is going to be a free throw, come together or right at the free throw line. The idea is that when a coach looks over, and we should still be observing the benches during a timeout, but when the coach looks over, you can simply hold the ball up in the air and point with a finger, or just say, yes, it's right here. So that's the idea, that we're always staying fairly close to the spot where that throw-in would go for the timeout. If you come together, if you don't come together, as the diagram shows, on the two-person side, the administering official would be at the spot. So a spot out of bounds, at the free throw line if they're shooting free throws, And then the trail would stand, or I shouldn't say trail, but the official that does not have the ball would stand on the back side of the circle for a 60-second timeout, or would stand on the front side of the circle for a 30-second timeout. We switch on over to the 3-person. If it's a 30-second timeout, the 2 officials that do not have the ball would stand at the top of the key, 30 seconds. And then if it's a full timeout, they're going to stand on the block opposite. So just some reminders there. We go on down to.
Well, one other thing with the timeouts, JB, for 3-person, just remember, it won't force a rotation either. If you're center headed into the start of the timeout, you should be center coming out of it. You might have to flip the court based on where the baseline throwing is, but just remember our timeouts do not force a rotation, okay?
And then the proper sequence when I get to the reporting area for the timeout. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, Eric. I'm going to have 4 steps in it. Okay. I'm going to point with my hand towards the bench, and I'm going to call out the team. Byron, coach, with a 30-second timeout. My fingertips are down. And then I'm going to point at the clock. Start my clock, please. Okay, so once again, I point at the bench. Byron, I say the actual school. I don't need to use a color. Byron, coach, 30-second timeout, start clock. And when you start the clock, it's important that we look both to the left and to the right to make sure that the teams are into their huddle. We don't want to start a timeout if the teams aren't already into their huddle. So it's not about us starting this timeout as fast as we can. It's about us having a nice even flow, getting the teams in, and then we get the timeout started. But it should be 4 steps. It's going to be team, the calling, my coach, or the calling player. Maybe it's 32. And then the timeout length, and then start the clock. I see what in the chat. Let's see what I just saw here. Double thumbs down on shoulders. It's going to be fingertips. It's not going to be thumbs. And here's the reason for that, okay? If I go with thumbs down on shoulders, that can be misconstrued as it's all about me. And this game is not all about us, okay? It's going to be my fingertips down instead of thumbs. You know, that's from Germany. You know, interesting. That's Marshall on an airplane right now flying to Germany. Thanks, Marshall. All right, so as we cruise on down, okay, let's go down to the throw-in spot, throw-in coverage, please, Eric. All right, so on the one on the left, it is important to know if we have a double dribble, a travel, a foul, whatever. And if the rule states take it out of bounds at the spot of the infraction, whether it's a violation or a foul, which that's the way that the rule book is written, we need to make sure that we're taking it out of bounds at the correct spot. Okay? Too many times I see people put the ball in bounds at a spot that is convenient to their position. If that means that you need to flip over to the other side of the lane, whether it's 2 or 3 person, you need to flip over to the other side of the lane. Okay? Too many times when the ball is up in the key, can you point to the key, Eric? So the ball is right there. So we have a foul right there on the ball. We are not shooting the bonus. We need to drag that throw-in spot down to the block. So you'll see his arrow. He's either going to go there or he's going to go over to the other side. Now, if it's right in the middle, okay, just pick one, you know, but if it's towards one side in the key, yeah, then you should go to that side. Now, where people get confused is is that this applies to both front court and back court. So if we would be going from back court to front court and we would have a foul right where his arrow is now, that still needs to go back to that end line. It doesn't go out to the side. Okay, so this diagram is used both front court and back court. Can you move your arrow out? I'm gonna move it out to the white section somewhere, right there. Now, if we'd have a foul here and we're going back court to front court, then it's gonna go to the side. Okay, so this hole with free throw lane key area, and what it is, it's a diagonal right from the elbow to the corner. That applies to both front court and back court. If you go to the diagram on the right, this is your foul reporting area. This is both 2-person and 3-person. And a common mistake for our younger officials is that they'll get really close to the X. So if you could put, yeah, they're going to get right where the arrow is, thinking that they need to get really close to report. You'll get more and more comfortable with this. And when I'm reporting, I'm getting myself to that reporting area, but I'm not coming any closer than I have to. I'm trying to save a couple steps. So I like to report from the back of the reporting area. I clear myself from players. I give a good signal. It's always color first, red, 45, block. And then I'm either going to say ball out of bounds or I'm going to say 2 shots. But it's always my color first and then your numbers. So 45. Or
one thing with that, Jared, too, is remember if we have a double number, if we have a 45 or a 23, you see how Jared put both hands up at the same time. We don't go a 2 and then bring the 3 in. Opposite, we bring them up at the same time, because you'll have a table official that will see the 2 and start writing, and they won't see you bring up the number 3 after you put the 2 up. So bring both hands up at the same time.
And the key with the whole double hands is get your hands ready below. Okay, so I'm getting my hands ready before I flip them. Okay, so I have 2 4s coming right here, and then I go red 44. So when I flip, I got everything ready to go. It's a little trick. Let's go on over to the actual mechanics, Mr. Rain. If you want to slide your, yeah, thank you. So all of these mechanics, no, we're not going to go through each and every one, but I'm going to hit on a few of them. So when we go to stop the clock in the game of basketball, okay, when I'm training someone in brand new, I tell them real simply, okay, the whistle's in the mouth and our hands are free. We are not hanging on to the whistle. So, bite down on the whistle with your teeth. When you blow, 1 of 2 things are going to happen. I'm going to blow and I'm going to fist it. You can see my fist. That means we got a foul. I'm going to blow and go with an open hand, go straight up. That means I'm either going to have a violation, I'm going to have a directional, I'm going to stop the clock, whatever. It's either fist or here, straight up. Okay? Those are the only 2 ways that we can stop the game from a mechanic standpoint. Now, the rest of that, I go like this, and now I'm starting to spit my whistle, because then I've already stopped the game by both my mechanic and my whistle blowing. I'm spitting the whistle out, and now I can use my voice and I can project, and I can also come with my mechanic, whether it's a block, it's a push, etc., for a foul. If I'm coming open hand, I go open hand, go straight up, blow whistle, same time, I spit, traveling, and then I come on out and point, white ball. If I have a directional, straight up, and then I'm dropping that same arm. So what it's going to look like on the screen is my fingers are going to be like this. It's not going to be like this. It's not going to be like this. It's not going to be like this. My thumb is tucked, and it looks just like that. I got to get another person in from the waiting room. Oh, thank you, Eric. So I go straight up, I stop clock, white ball, and you can see my fingers. So now if I'm going the opposite way, I go right straight up, white ball. So I blow, and I'm saying the direction that we're going, white or red. I'm not saying off red, white ball. That's a tongue twister. And now we're hearing two different colors, and now you're confusing people, and you could confuse yourself. Even with a jump ball, you see with diagram number 3, what the State High School League wants, and they changed this a couple years ago, and I still struggle with it, I'll tell you that right now, is we want to stop clock first. So we go straight up, stop clock, and then we come with a jump ball, and we're going to cover our ears. So the jump ball is going to go up, and we're going to get that nice and high. The bird dog. Yep.
One thing with the jump ball that I've seen is everybody, if you have players tied up on the floor, worry about the jump ball signal after you get in there and make your voice heard so that the players know you're there, and it'll stop any extracurricular dead ball, contact, technical fouls from happening. Be loud, say, hey, up easy, get in there, and then worry about getting the thumbs above your head after the players are off the floor, and then give your signal. But make sure we're officiating the players first. Using our voice. I said this yesterday on an eval game. I said, use your voice more as something I could write down on an eval sheet for everybody years 1 through 4 or 5. New officials tend to be a little quieter and they don't talk to the players as much. Get in there on those jump balls so that we don't end up having something happen on those plays.
If you see with diagram number 5, the bird dog, that was a thing that we used years and years ago. I highly recommend you don't use the bird dog. The only time, and I'm talking once a season, folks, if I have a mess on the floor and bodies all over the place and someone clearly came in on the loose ball and wiped someone out, I may bird dog, but the bird dog is super late. So the bird dog, that's a thing of the past. If you take a look at diagram number 8, a visible count is an extension from the shoulder. And if anything, it's an extension a little bit downward versus upward, because we don't want to go up. We want to come off the extension and maybe go just slightly down. A 60-second timeout in number 10. I have a string and it's right here, and I'm just pulling and letting my fingers go so they're like this at the end. Don't come with a fist and go out with a double fist, because that is a double foul. We don't want to have a double foul on a timeout. Let's see, a 3-point field goal, number 16. I saw this last week from one of our younger officials, is that they marked with fingers straight up like this. Okay, now in some codes, that's the way that you do it. With NCAA women's, that's the way that you do it. But in the high school code, we use a 3 like this, and we go out at a 45-degree angle with our arm, and it's always towards the division line. So if we're trail, center, possibly lead in a 2-person, it's always going to be towards the division line, because we're trying to show the table. That's where you're going to show the prelim. If they make it, then we signal. And our signal's like this. It's not like this. It's not like this. It's not way out here. It's right here. We go overhead. Scroll on down a little bit, please, Eric. I'm just trying to pick out a couple of highlights here. So we have the violations: travel, illegal dribble, palming or carrying, over and back, a 3-second, a 5-second, a 10-second. Those are all going to be with the hand up, and then I would come with that hand up, 5-second violation. I cannot say it enough. Eric said it too. Use your voice. So I'm blowing, I'm stopping, now I'm spitting, and then I can come with it, because the players on the court, they're going to react. First, they're going to stop at your whistle. That's what we want. We want the whistle to stop 10 players. But then they're going to react more so to your voice. Traveling. Well, they understand that, oh, okay, traveling, the defense is going to get the ball. Okay, I mean, they understand that we have a hand check, well, the offense is going to get the ball. If you take a look over on the right-hand side, we have the illegal use of hands. Signal like that, we have a hand check. We have a block, we have a pushing. The player control number 34, I would take that out. That is the old way. I would not use number 34. It's going to be fist up and I punch for a player control, fist up, and I punch for a team control. So let's say that we have an illegal screen, go up, and you can either say a team control, or you pop up, and then you spit whistle and go, and then just say, okay, that's an illegal screen. Illegal screen.
We had a question in the chat for a legal screen. Yes, you need to give the team control first. If you want to indicate that it was an illegal screen because of blocking, you can do that after at the table, but your preliminary spot should be the same as a player control: fist in the air to stop the clock, and then punch the opposite direction for an illegal screen foul. If you want to indicate that it was an illegal screen because of a blocking violation, meaning they were moving, go ahead. But usually the coach is going to ask why, and that's where your voice is going to be needed over the preliminary signal of a block, I guess, would be my opinion.
All right. So Eric, let's go to that other diagram and talk through mechanics.
Okay.
So we're going to talk free throw mechanics, both as a 2-person crew and as a 3-person crew. So I know it's marked up here as a 3-person for both, but let me just sort of talk through it. So the table is on the right-hand side. If you take a look where it says scorer and timer, that's your table. So keep in mind, that's where the table is. Let's talk 2-person first. So if we take the T out of that diagram on the left, I'm simply looking at the diagram on the left, okay? The lead is going to run the show. So the lead is going to have the ball. The lead is going to have eye contact with the C, and they're also going to say, or excuse me, to their trail, lead and trail, we got 2-person, 2 shots. They both should have a 2 up in the air. If one has a 2, one has a 1, we shut everything down. We got to talk. If one has a 3, one has a 2, shut it down. But we're on the same page. We got 2 shots. All right. The lead is not going to go any further than the bottom 4 and the bottom 5. They don't want to step up above the players. They want to stay about right where the hoop is. So they're going to stay right there. They're going to say 2 shots. They're going to bounce the ball to the free throw shooter. The trail should then go out to the side with their arm towards the division line. They show the 2, so they are going to start here, or maybe they just start here. Doesn't matter. Either start here where we're showing or start out at the side. At any rate, you're going to be out at the side. Once the free throw shooter gets the ball, your hand drops, and we start that visible count with the wrist flick. Okay, that wrist flick is always towards the division line. The trail is going to be halfway between the sideline and the nearest free throw lane line. So they're just outside the 3-point arc, or maybe standing on the 3-point arc. And they're at a 45-degree angle. They're responsible for the shooter and the 3 spots opposite. The lead is standing out of bounds, and they're standing in that closed down position, which is the open circle, and they're observing their 3 positions opposite. The trail has the non-shooters. So we have the 1, 2, and 3 up on top of the key. They're observing those 3 as well. Those 3 cannot come in until the ball touches the rim. On the second free throw in 2-person, our lead is going to move out about halfway between the lane line and the 3-point line. And our center is still going to be in the same spot. When the throw goes up, they need to raise their hand on the last one. That would be the hand facing the table. And they're going to close down at a slight angle towards the sideline because they're wanting to get away from the players to have a wider field of vision. Then they're ready for the rebounding. Now we're going to flip on over to this mechanic on the right-hand side. So the mechanic for the 2-person on the left, that's before the shooter releases the ball. Once the shooter releases the ball and it's clean, meaning we don't have a violation, we don't have a delayed violation, we then need to flip our look. And we now are looking to our side of the floor for the rebounding action. And this happens quick, folks. And this is sometimes where we miss a foul both in 2 and 3, is because we don't flip our look from the free throw as the shooter is dribbling and getting ready to release to after the shot is released, everything's clean. Now we go to rebounding action. If we switch this up to 3-person, now it's going to be center, lead, trail. The trail is going to stand up at the division line for the first of multiple free throws. When I stand at the division line, I like to be about halfway between the bottom of the circle and the sideline. I can observe my subs quite well. I can also step in the backcourt if a coach would have a question or want to chat. I can take 2 steps into the front court and I can chat with that coach. So I'm basically maintaining a neutral spot of multiple free throws for 3-person. The trail is responsible for the 1, 2, 3. Okay. The center is responsible for the free throw shooter and the 3 opposite. The lead is responsible for the 3 opposite. The shot goes up. The center and the lead are going to flip their coverage just like a 2-person with the lead and trail. And the trail on the last of multiple free throws is going to be at the 28-foot mark. And that's what you're seeing right here is you're seeing that the trail's at the 28-foot mark right next to the sideline and they're ready for their rebounding action. Eric, what else do we want to talk about with free throws?
One question I got asked this year is what happens if you indicate 2 shots and there's only 1? If you do this long enough, it will happen. By rule, if you indicate 2 shots and you don't get it fixed before the release of the first attempt and there's only supposed to be 1 attempt, as soon as that free throw ends, whether with a made shot, well, if it's with a made shot, you simply give it to the defense. If it's a miss, as soon as it's clear and evident that that free throw is not going to go in, the ball is dead and you go to the possession arrow. So you go to your alternating possession arrow and whoever has the arrow gets the ball. With that said, if I have a 40-point game, I'm not going to look at the arrow. If the team on defense is the team that's down by 40, I'm going to use a little bit of sportsmanship judgment there. But by rule, you would go to your arrow.
And now that was for what, Eric?
If you screw up and say 2 shots and there's only 1, say you have an end 1 and you indicate multiple free throws when there's only 1 left. It's happened to me in the past, and I know it happened in an under varsity game somewhere this year. So just know that's what you do. If it's missed, you kill it, and it doesn't matter if 1 or 2 of the players knew it was only 1. As soon as it's missed, it's a dead ball, and you go to the alternating possession arrow.
So the reason that gets missed like that, folks, is because we're going too fast and our confirmation with our partners is sloppy. That's the reason that gets missed, and that's all on us. That's something that we can control. So, if you have a question with the table doesn't know, you slow everything down. If the table is set, we're at 7, we're at a 1-1. We need to have both the verbal, okay, and the visible, the 1-and-1. So that's the lead running that. So we're getting eye contact, and we're also seeing that physical mechanic that will help out in that situation. Was there another question in the primary or in the chat?
Yep. So Jacob, your question, if there's a foul on a rebound, like during a free throw or even a live ball situation, I'm gonna stop the clock with a fist in the air, and then with my other hand, I'm gonna point going the other direction so that we know it was a rebounding foul on the offense. If it's a defensive foul on the rebounding, you can point to the baseline or just point to the spot you want the throw in and say the color of the ball, color of who's going to get the ball as well, kind of like an out of bounds. Would you agree with that, Jared?
I would agree. Yeah. If you're going to send that down the floor, meaning that that it's the shooting team's foul, so to say, and you're going to give it to the defense and send it down the floor. Yeah. I'm going to point down the floor. However, if it's against the non-shooting team, I'm gonna fist it, and then I might say, we're staying right here, with 2 fingers, or I might say we're staying here with 1 finger. Yeah, but Eric's right. The color is important. I'm a red ball right here, and you can even turn and give the directional back behind you if need be. To signify that, hey, we are staying here, because that's sort of a big time call because they just got done shooting a free throw, defense, and they're getting the ball back. Next question, no rim on a free throw and 3-person, who's primary? The primary is going to be the center because they have the ball, they have the free throw shooter. However, the trail needs to have a strong opinion. And I call the trail on a free throw in 3-person. I call them the safety plug. Okay, if something is egregiously missed by our partners, the trail comes in and they save the day. Most of the time, the trail just takes care of the players that are outside the 3-point arc. But once in a great while, the trail might have to get involved and save the day. My trail gets in late, that would correct. And the trail would come in with a later whistle at trying to let C would take it first.
Something somebody told me at a college camp once, in a 3-person crew, your trail is the catch-all. They have the 3 people behind the 3-point arc, and then they're going to come in and save the day on anything missed, whether it's a lane violation if they can pick it up or an air ball. But you're going to come in late with whatever you come in on and get. But you're kind of the safety valve for both the center and the lead, because they have a lot of responsibilities during a free throw, and trail not much out there behind the 3-point line. So
all right. Okay, let's talk through a couple of things here, and then we're going to open it up for questions. So counts. If I'm going to give the ball to the person on my left, I'm going to give the ball to them, and this same hand is going to do the count. So I'm going to give the ball, I'm going to step back, I'm going to go straight up with my outside hand, and I'm going to count like this. Okay. Saw with a newer official this last week, hand the ball and then went up with this hand. And the reason we want to try to stay away from that, it's minor, but now with my hand up, I can block my own vision, so to speak. So so if it's to my left, hand with my left hand, take a step or 2 back and chop with my left hand. If it's to my right, hand with my right hand, chop with my right, I'm gonna chop the count, or I should say count with my right hand, chop with my left hand. Does that make sense, Eric? Did I sort of like mess that up, or does that make sense?
Yeah, nope. Whatever hand you hand the ball to with, you want to be your hand closest to the inbounder, hand the ball and count with that hand and chop with the other one. And you always want to make sure you're outside the person throwing the ball in and giving yourself the ability to back out and get a wide view. One other thing we've noticed a lot this year, and this is new officials and at the varsity level, is we have too many whistles on throw-ins. The only time you should have a whistle before administering a throw in is if you're the lead in the front court. We have backcourt whistles for throw ins. We have sideline whistles on throw ins. If you're a lead in the front court, whistle, then hand the ball. Anywhere else, it should just be if you want to verbalize ball coming in or ball and then bounce it or hand it to the thrower on the sideline, feel free. But there's far too many whistles on our sideline and backcourt throw-ins.
Okay, so let's just talk about that for just a little bit more. So what the State High School League wants, and this came out in their first memo here back, I think dated at December 7th, is they want everything to have a bounce pass. Whether we have pressure, whether we don't have pressure, whether we're front court, whether we're on the side, whether we're back court, they want everything with a bounce pass. Okay, now I know some people aren't, but I'm just telling you that's what the league stated in their last memo. Okay, so I'm gonna take that for what it's worth. Yeah, but Eric's exactly right. 2-person or 3-person, the lead in the front court. The lead in the front court. So administering a throw to the offense in the front court, whistle every single time. Even if you're bouncing it up the sideline, whistle every single time. The trail needs to chop time, whether we're in 2-person or 3-person, every single time that we're in the front court. So the lead's going to whistle and the trail's going to chop every single time in the front court. The whistling before every throw in, okay, as Eric said, it's unneeded. Think of it like this. I'm coming out of a timeout. I need to have a whistle. All right. I have a long delay. Yeah, we had an injury. We had the trainer come on out. That's a long delay. We're going to whistle it to start back up. We're at the end of the game and it's a hockey line change. We have 8 subs coming in. Give them a few extra seconds to figure out who they're guarding because it's the subs. Now whistle that because you have so many people coming into the game. That's a good time for the whistle. But if it's a routine out of bounds, a travel, a double dribble, I'm a substitute in and out, we don't need to whistle that. Okay, that's an unneeded whistle. Last thing, and then I want to open it up for questions. This was an excellent question that Eric and I had this last Wednesday night. We had an eval official working with us, did a solid job, but had a very higher level question for us in the locker room afterwards. Here's the question. You're working 3-person and you get a drive coming in from center. It's coming at a 45 from the center right to the bucket. Whose whistle? Is it leads or is it centers? And I threw back at him. I said, this is the way that we want to work this. Okay. Is if it's a 45-degree and it's coming right from center, it's a 1-on-1 to the rack. Primary defender, center takes that play all the way to the bucket. So if there's a player control, if there's a player control, if there's a block, if there's a clean play, it's center's call. Now, lead could come in with a cadence whistle, which means it's a delayed whistle because they saw something on the front. The center didn't see it. They feel that they got to get it for the game, the crew, fine. Okay. But if it's a primary defender, center's all the way to the bucket. If the secondary defender, it gets involved. So now we have that help side defense coming. That has to be lead. Lead's going to own the secondary defender because they're down there monitoring the arc. They're seeing that player try to flow on over and to legally establish, they need to rule on that. Or maybe they didn't legally establish. They need to rule on that. That's in 3-person. Now take that same discussion, transfer it to 2-person. We have lead trail. We get a 1-on-1 coming from trail to the rack. Keep this simple, folks. 1-on-1 to the rack from trail's position, primary defender only. It's trail's call at the rack. Too many times we get the lead stretching. Sure, lead, if there's something on the front side and you have that cadence whistle which means that we have a delayed whistle and the trail doesn't call it, and you're like, holy cow, we need that call, come in and get it. I'm not saying don't call, but let the trail take the primary defender all the way to the rack. Now, if it's a secondary defender getting involved in a two-person set, the lead owns the secondary defender. Keep the way that you officiate these plays the same, going from two-person to three-person. If you keep it the same, it's going to really help out your game when you're working back and forth. Well, Eric, anything to add to that?
No, you just got to remember, lead's responsibility on most drives is going to be those secondary defenders, especially in three-person. If you look as a whole, most of our offensive sets at the varsity level, we don't have a lot of post players with the back to the basket. So you're trying to stay strong side, ball side, where the ball is in most of the players, but the lead's really going to get, whether it's trail or center, that primary defender, let the trail and center have those, and then be working on, are they out of the arc? Are they in the arc? And then did they get legal before the shot goes up? And you can do that two-person. It's a little harder because you go all the way out to the sideline for your coverage area. So you're going to get some of that drive on your side, but lead can really help out the game, and you can get more of your arc plays right as well, and your block charges if they worry about the secondary defenders.
And not too many times as leads, we are too close to the basket, meaning that we're too close to that lane line. If you go back a step or two, whether you're working two-person or three-person, you're going to widen your field of vision, and you're going to be a better official because you're wider as lead. Even on rebounding, if I'm in a close down, which means I'm right next to that lane line as lead, because there's a shot going up on the opposite side of the basket and I want to have a look. Once we go into rebounding, which is very quickly after that, I take a step or a step and a half out, whether I'm working two or three, because it gives me a wider field of vision. And I can pick up, something in my peripheral just a little bit easier. Eric, I think we're out of information and we ran 14 minutes over. We got to open it up for Q&A.
Sounds good.
Fire your questions. Yeah, unmute. Let's chat. And we have a quiet bunch this week. Last week, we had a lot of people talking. Jeff, go ahead, boss.
You talking about Jeff Pratt?
Yeah, Jeff's iPad.
Yep. Okay. Hey, guys, thanks for this tonight. Good stuff. My question is on lead and crossing the lane as the ball is in rotation. Underneath the manual, it says you should cross the lane purposefully, meaning get from one side to the other side. Several times this year already, and it's early in the season. I'm not a new referee. I've been around for a number of years, just like many of us, but I wanted to listen in tonight because I thought I could learn some good things here, and I have. When that lead starts to cross the lane and go from one side to the other, and they decide not to complete their transition and stop and go back to their previous spot, I feel like that is a bad decision all the way around. And my point is this: if you're going to go, go, otherwise don't go. And my thinking is, because I feel like the center and the trail are doing kind of a yo-yo dance when that lead can't make a decision. I want to be over on the right side or I need to be on the left side. What I'm saying is they didn't complete their movement, right?
Yeah.
So in a game 3 days ago or 3 games ago, this was going on with my lead, and I, honest to God, I missed a travel call, and then the lead himself called a foul, so transaction, because I was backing up. I looked to my partner to see if he was dropping in, and I missed a travel call. The coach was right behind me. I felt like an idiot, 'cause if he did travel, I didn't even see it, but nonetheless, and it's because my lead was going halfway, going back. Then when he decided to go, then of course, we have the skip pass, and he comes all the way back, and he comes back across right away again. What is the real process here? Because I think there's a big misconception on what's it mean to move purposely across the baseline if you're the lead from one side of the free throw or the paint line to the other.
Very good, Jeff.
Is that
Yep,
is that a fair question?
that's a fair question. Are you ready?
I am.
Okay. First off, thanks for joining us, Jeff. Okay. Excellent question. So it's a 3-person set. All right. So it's not 2-person, it's a 3-person. Reasons that the lead is going to rotate. So when we say rotate, meaning the ball is live and the lead says, hey, I need to get on over to the other side of the floor. Okay. So reasons that we rotate, the ball settles on the other side of the floor. Okay. That would be a reason to rotate. Now, if it's a bunch of skip passing against a zone, we're going to be slower because the ball might not settle. People's definition of settle is different sometimes, but that's one reason to go. Another reason to go is they're screening for the big post player. So you are anticipating a ball coming into the low post. You want to be sitting on that side of the floor with the low post. Okay.
Agreed. I don't want to look to the back of the defender.
Correct. So think about it like this. Okay. The game of basketball is point, wing, post. A lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time, boys or girls, big school or small school, they're trying to work that ball from the point to the wing to the post. Well, if we can recognize this play structure going on, we can anticipate the play. Okay. So if we can anticipate the play, it's going to put us in a better position to get the call right if we would have to blow. So let's talk about the actual rotation. So we decide that we need to rotate. So as lead, we are still officiating our old primary as we go across the lane. So that might mean that we're looking back over our shoulder. That might mean that there is nothing over my shoulder and I'm looking ahead. And what we want to do when we're rotating is don't officiate air. We need to find a matchup, and even better, find 2 matchups as you rotate. Now, that rotation is not complete until that lead gets all the way across that far lane line. So the center and the trail should not move. And now I'm not going to say never ever, because they might move a little bit earlier to have an angle on a play, but they shouldn't get into that yo-yo effect as you're talking about until the lead gets all the way across to that far lane line. And the reason I say this, Jeff, is if I'm rotating and I'm halfway into the lane, heck, I'm 3/4 of the way into the lane and a shot goes up. Okay, so the shot would be going up in the C's area because I'm trying to get over to that side. If a shot goes up, I'm going to back on out because I don't want to slam my C down the court. Because if I finish that rotation, now my C has to, they have to rule on the legality of the shot, the legality of the box out, and then, oh yeah, okay, now go down to trail. Okay, when we're flying down to the other end. So if I don't make it all the way over to that lane line and I cross over that opposite lane line, okay, that rotation is not complete. So if there is a quick shot, I'm backing out. If there is a quick drive, I started to rotate and now there's a quick drive coming right from C, I'm going to throw on my brakes and I'm going to ref that secondary matchup, and then I can back out as well. So the lead is running the bus down there. And there's times when I'm in a 3-person set that I will rotate 3 to 4 times in a half court possession because they're constantly swinging the ball from point wing post. They're going to the other side. And if you think about it, the basic premise of 3-person, the basic, I mean, if you strip everything down, the basic premise is to have the lead and the trail on the same side of the court as the ball. Now, yeah, the center can have the ball all by themselves for a little bit, but the lead should be coming to help out. Eric, what did I miss?
The only thing I'd really add to that is kind of the play he described where he missed the travel. If I'm center, I'm gonna worry about the play first. I would rather miss a rotation by my lead and pick up that travel than be looking to know what's going on with my partners, why the ball's in my primary. My attention needs to stay on the ball handler to get that, maybe a reach in foul or a push or that travel or double dribble. And usually if a lead's rotating, it's because the ball's in the center's primary and there's something about to happen. Stay in that center position, stay at that free throw line extended wherever you are to view the play, and then wait till there's a break in the action, whether it's a made basket on a drive, a 3-point shot, and then worry about rotating up to trail. But if and this is going to happen as we have, maybe not you, but maybe your partner was new to 3-person that night, as we have more 3-person games the last 2 years. This is some of the growing pains as we, as a whole association, all get used to all 3-person games. We need to worry about rotations after that. There's a break in the action that allows us to move from center to trail and adjust when the lead comes over, but stay in that. Stay in that. And
Eric,
officiate the play.
great information right there. I think all of us are in a hurry to rotate. When that lead does something, we're kind of all in a hurry to rotate. Good call out there from that standpoint. So appreciate the feedback, guys.
Yep.
You bet, Jeff. Great question. Scott Eckelkamp.
Yep.
What about a blocking foul, hands on hips, not fists on hips, correct? Technically, by the book, you are correct. It would be hands down to hips. Okay. Sometimes when we're at the spot, and I'll be the first one to admit it because you saw me in the video. If you watched the first video from the State High School League, I sold the hell out of a block. That wasn't a block. And Jason Nickleby even said, yeah, we don't really need a foul here. This is pretty good defense. If you haven't watched that, watch it, because he calls me out because I missed a foul. And I'll tell you this, when I put air in that whistle, I sold the hell out of it because I didn't think it was a block either, but I already blew my whistle. So I came fist down at the spot, which I know that technically I'm not supposed to, but if I come fingers, I would have broke fingers that night. Okay, so I come fist at the table, I probably went fingers, but technically, Scott Eckelkamp, you are correct. Hands on the hips, not fists. Other questions?
Yeah. Thanks, Jared.
You bet.
Hey, Butter, this is Gus. Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead, Gus.
On the lead doing rotations, I have the idea that I'm always looking for straight line vision as on the court as the ball is going from one side to the other. What's your comment on that?
Yeah, can you explain yourself a little bit more on straight line vision? I don't exactly follow.
I don't want to be standing right next to someone who's almost on the baseline, but I want to get back a ways and then switch over to the other side. I think if I do have straight line, I can better see what the heck's going on.
Well, yeah, well, we want to be careful in getting straight line. Now, when I'm saying straight line right now, is I'm looking through the defender's back. And then if I'm looking through the defender's back, I can't see between the defender and the offender. So, if we have a matchup with ball, without ball, I want to try to be able to see between them for sure. If they have the ball, I want to be able to try to see between them. Whether that's my 2-person, 3-person lead trail center, it doesn't matter. I just don't want to look through the back of someone. So we talk about positioning adjust. I walk 1 or 2 steps down. I walk 1 or 2 steps up. on like an arc to make sure that I'm looking through those two players. What I would tell you about getting straight lined as lead down there is I would work to get wider. If you work to get wider as lead, you're not going to get straight lined as much.
Okay,
Does
I
that
can
help, Gus?
understand. I can understand that.
Yeah, one thing too with the lead position that it kind of helps me is unless you're about to rotate, you want to be at minimum. If the ball's in the paint area, you want to be a minimum 3 to 4 feet outside the lane line. If I'm lead, the only time I want to be on the lane line is when I'm closed down and getting ready to rotate across because the ball went to the C side. If I'm lead and the ball's on my side already and I'm at the lane line, Butson said it earlier, I'm too closed down. I need to at least mirror the ball or get a little wider than the ball, and then that'll give me that vision. He kind of stated earlier, we have a lot of leads that spend their time at the lane line when the ball's on that side of the court. We need to work wider and get that angle view there.
A good question.
Okay, very good. Thank you, guys.
You bet. Thanks, Gus. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, what is the association view on touchy fouls versus an actual foul? Lots of coaches constantly say that's a foul. Some referees call them, others do not. I guess in my book, it's a foul or it's not a foul. Now, we could have, some crews are calling it a little tighter, but I guess what I'm really looking for is I'm looking for legal guarding position. I need to figure out in my head very quickly if the defense has legal guarding position, because that's going to make my foul selection, my decision to blow or not blow, a heck of a lot easier if I figure out if they're in legal guarding position. So if they are in legal guarding position, now what can they do to maintain that? Well, they can move laterally, they can move obliquely, which means that they can move side to side as long as they're staying in front of the offense. They can back up. That's legal to do. They can jump straight up in their vertical plane. That's legal to do. Now, if the offense gets head and shoulders past, now, if the defense makes contact with them, they bump them off of their, as David Broadwater said, rhythm, speed, quickness, balance. That's a foul on the defense because they got head and shoulders past. So I really put it back to legal guarding position. Okay. Out on the perimeter, legal guarding position. Can they move side to side? And can they maintain their legal guarding position? If they've got their hands draped all over them, they've got an arm bar in their back, I'm going to blow that. I'm going to clean the game up. And if you get a couple of those early, Jeff, one each way, it's going to clean up your perimeter. Okay. It's one thing if they put a hand on to measure up and then they take it off. Legal. That's legal. Now, if they start jabbing with the hand, I blow your whistle. If they leave the hand on there for seconds, I'm talking like 10 seconds and they're not taking their hand off, blow it. You can also use your voice. I do a lot of preventative officiating, especially early in the game. I'm up working the perimeter. I got my counts going. Hands. I'll just say hands. And you'll be amazed at how quick they take their hands off. Hands. I didn't say hands are illegal. I didn't say hands don't do that. I just said hands. Or I'll say legal. Legal. Easy. Straight. I have these one little word things on rebounding early in the game, guys and gals, if we have any gals on. I will say legal. A shot goes up and they're bracing for the rebounding. Legal. And they hear you, and instead of trying to ride someone under the bucket or go through someone's back, I may have just prevented a kid from getting a foul, and I kept the game flowing. So I will talk through my whistle early in the game, legal, straight. But my touchy fouls versus actual fouls, I want the foul to affect the play. But David points this out really well: rhythm, speed, quickness, balance, and legal guarding position. Okay, because if anyone says that basketball is not a contact sport, you should have a discussion with them, because basketball is a contact sport. But that contact, we need to rule on that contact. Is it incidental? Is it legal guarding position and there was contact and it's a good no call? Was it offense? Was it defense? Newt says lane to warn for 3 seconds. Yeah, that's another good one. I hate calling 3 seconds in the lane. We need to look at 3 seconds in the lane. Are we putting a team at a big disadvantage? If we are, get them below 3 seconds. Okay, but if you use the term lane, or I'll use the term clear, they know, and they meaning the players, they would appreciate that. I'm not sure if I answered your question. Eric, do you have anything to add?
As far as the hand check goes, one thing, kind of rule of thumb I use is if the ball handler dribbler starts to try and drive and they get 1 or 2 dribbles in and that hand still, and it looks from an official's point of view, it might look like they've just got their hand placed on their hip or on their side and they're not directing them anywhere. If they get 1 or 2 dribbles in going to the basket and that hand's still there, you need to call that foul right then. Because if you wait any longer, that player is going to gather and start to go off, and that defensive player is going to pull their hand back. And now you can't call a shooting foul, and you've waited on the hand check foul. And I have a picture from a game earlier this year for that play. I wish I had it. It's on Post Bulletin posted. Player put her hand right on the hip as the ball handler is going by her. And from the backside, it looks like just a light touch. From the front side where the camera was, that defender's fingers were inside the belt line of the shorts, and they had a handful of shorts so that they could steer that ball handler where they're going. So from our perspective, from 10 feet away, it might look like a touchy foul, but the hand on the hip can direct traffic and affect the rhythm, speed, and balance. And if they start a drive and you get 1 or 2 dribbles into that drive and they still put their hand on there, call the foul. And either they're going to, and do it early, because if you get those fouls early in the game, they're either going to clean it up or they're going to have a long practice the next day. And you're going to have a long night of free throws, but they need to learn because that's kind of the direction we're going. So.
And then I would point out to Jeff that the association doesn't have a view on touchy fouls or on actual fouls. It's the state high school league. Okay. So what we're trying to do as an RAOA is we're trying to adhere to what the state high school league wants as a foul and doesn't want as a foul. And the training tapes are great. Last year's training tapes, I'd go back and review those. My guess is that Jason Nickleby is going to send out another training tape this week. I'm thinking he's going to have 2 out before Christmas. That's coming from the state high school league. William, so on a reach in foul or touchy foul, would that be considered illegal use of hands? For starters here, now this is more for our younger people, a reach in is not a foul. Okay. You will hear coaches, especially younger coaches, call the reach. Folks, I can reach all day long. I can reach. There's no foul unless I have contact. Okay. I need to have contact. So if I'm trying to steal the ball and I have contact coming right across the forearm to get to the ball, that's a foul. And I wouldn't call that a touchy foul. That's just a foul. Okay. Because you don't want to take your verbiage to a coach saying, yeah, that's a touchy foul, but I needed to call that. Because if I'm a coach, I'm going to say, where in the heck is, quote, a touchy foul in the rule book? It's either a foul or it's not. Now, that's where judgment comes into play. Heavens, yes. Okay. That was a clean steal. No, but he got him across the arm. And sometimes we have to agree to disagree with coaches. Now, that's the nature of the business. I go back to Jeff here with a little bit, with that travel 3-person. And sometimes you just have to say to the coach, Coach, I did not have a travel, but if it you know, if it is the way that you said it is, then we missed it. And we move on. Because the coach can't say anything at that point. Now, I'm not going to do that. I mean, 72 times in the night. Okay. But I mean, once in a while, that can sort of get you out of the slop a little bit. So, now hopefully that answers your question, William. But yes, you would call that what an illegal use of arm or of hands. Yep.
Here, Jared, I'll go. So here's our foul signals for the hit that Jared just described, where they're trying to steal the ball. And if they make contact, you're going to use signal 29. If it's a ball handler dribbler and they put their hand on their hip while they're driving to the hoop and they just rest their hand on their hip and try to steer them, you're going to use signal 30 with the hand, with your left hand gripping your right wrist and the 5 fingers pushed out in front. That's for putting the hand check on. And if they go to make a steal and they make that illegal contact, like Jared talked about, you're going to use signal 29. You're going to put your left forearm out and make sure when you signal, you hit your left forearm with your right arm. And those would be those 2 signals for those plays.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Chris Zollner says, ask coach which foot was pivot foot when asking for a travel. Nicely asked. That's if the coach is asking for the travel. Okay. Because sometimes coaches just think that, quote, ugly is a travel, but we need to know the pivot foot. So in order to call a travel, whether it's a spin move travel or a running of the feet to get started, or they switch their pivot foot, we can't call a travel unless we know the pivot foot. Okay. I will self-talk that in my head. A right foot, left foot, right foot. Okay. So, sometimes we see plays on the court. Ooh, baby, that looked like a travel. Well, if I say to myself, that looked like a travel, but I don't know it was a travel, I can't put air in the whistle. If I'm going to put air in the whistle, I need to know that it's a travel, because when I put air in the whistle, I am now telling that coach or an observer or my partners on the floor, I can describe to you what happened on that play. And that's why I blew. But we can't just blow and, geez, I think that was a travel. It didn't look good. So we're just going to call it. Well, most coaches will understand. I agree. Anybody else have any questions? Otherwise, I'm going to get off and I'll go to my favorite friend, Arbiter. Anyone else for the good of the cause? Going once? Twice? All right,
Thanks, guys.
everybody.
Much appreciated.
You bet, Jeff. You bet, Scott. Have a great night, everyone. We'll shut down the recording. Have a Merry Christmas with you and your families. Good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.